Hello. All right. So this video is going to be explaining something that is more of a technical thing for people that have asked me about this. And it is to do skin painting, kind of realistic skin painting in Blender, like completely in Blender. So I have this model of my daughter that I made that has like obviously very subtle skin texture or not skin texture, skin coloring, and you have obviously all these different kind of reds, and there's breakup in the reds, and there's kind of a very like bluish and purple under the eyes, and there's all these basically subtle colors that are the result of layering various transparent glazes on top of each other. And so if that's the way it would be done in makeup effects, and that's the way it's done in 3D, where you have a base layer, which in this case would be this kind of basic skin layer. And on top of this are very subtle colors of breakup colors. So there's like a reddish lip color, which you can see here as kind of a capillary color. There is this kind of purpley color, there's bluish colors, there's veins that you can see over there, and there's oranges and all this different kind of stuff. Now, this is normally done in something like Mari or Substance Painter, but built Blender does not have any kind of obvious built-in layering system. It's not obvious that you can do this. So I want to show you how I did it, and because I haven't seen it anywhere else, and I'm sure other people are doing it, but I haven't seen it, so I want to kind of show people how it was done. So I'm going to open up another file, which is a demonstration file, and this one has basically just a skin of this baby that has been sort of mocked up here. It doesn't have any eyes, so it looks kind of mildly terrifying, and it's kind of low poly or whatever. So, but here I just did this kind of basic skin coloring here, and I kind of exaggerated it a little bit so you could see that here, you have this breakup of the skin, and you have this different reddish colors and the lip color and bluish colors around the eyes and other stuff, and obviously you can do whatever you want. And the way that this is done is, if I go to the shader tab and I zoom out, it's basically a chain of nodes that are going in order, kind of reproducing the layering system like Substance Painter. But it's like a poor man's Substance Painter, or a free man's Substance Painter, I guess, because it's free. And so what this is first I'm going to show you the much simpler version, and then I'll come back to this. So first, the simpler version. Okay, so let me go to the simpler version. Here is a much, much, much simpler version. So I'll show you the shader, and obviously there's nothing happening here, but I'm going to paint it. So here's the basic shader. I have a subsurface, but I'm not using it. It doesn't matter. Just you have the basic shader. This is Blender 3 point whatever, so the new one has a more efficient, more like streamlined shader, but it doesn't matter. Basically, in this case, I just have four colors that I'm going to use. I have a base color, which is what you see here. I have kind of a lip color, which you don't see here, and this vein color. And the basically way that it is you chain them together, and you use a some sort of map to tell the node what to choose from. So that's your factor. So in this case, I'm actually just using vertex colors to do that. You can use either vertex colors or image maps. So instead of having what this is here, this is a vertex color attribute. This could just be an image map, and it would be a different one for each layer if you had UVs. So here I have color attribute there and color attribute there. Color attribute is the new version for the new name for vertex color. And so I've set up two vertex colors for this particular model. Now this model over here is like a decimated model. So if you see the geometry, if anything ever happens, oh yeah, I probably should actually select it first. If you see the geometry, put that on. It is clearly some kind of decimated model. It's like the decimated version of a ZBrush model or something. So I'm going to be using vertex color to do this. And it can be, though, a low poly model, and you use the UVs. You use image textures for the UVs. So what I've done here, I set up in color attributes two different vertex colors. One I just called color, and the other one I called veins. And you just do this by going to color attributes plus and adding, uh, basically what this is adding a slot for a vertex color. I could do this and add another one, freckles, whatever, freckles, and I could add, I think, up to 8 vertex colors per model. So I don't need this now, but it doesn't matter. So then you go to shading, and what I have here is I have a mix shader with the colors that I am using now. Now these colors are the thing is about this is it's non-destructive. At any point I could change the colors that I'm using. Because what I'm doing is I'm using it like Substance Painter. I'm not actually painting on any colors. I'm just painting a black and white map to tell the computer which one to choose. So I'm actually going to move this away for now, and I'm just going to attach directly this one dual color. So I've now attached this dual color. If I take this off, I have this kind of magenta color and this flesh color, and I can scroll between the two. But if you attach a image texture or a vertex color node to this, this is now what's driving the choice. So if I go to the sculpting tab, which is actually, I find, a lot easier to use than the vertex paint tab, is you use the brush from the sculpting tab. The brush from the sculpting tab is kind of a new thing, and it actually is much faster than vertex color. There's much less lag. It works really well. Plus, you have some features that you don't have in the vertex color. So I'll do a very exaggerated version. If I just do this, boom, now I have red. And of course, I can play with the strength, the opacity of it, and now I'm having sort of a wash of red, and now I'm adding more and more red on, and now I'm, adding complete red. So obviously what you could do is that you could just, if you really wanted to just do little noodly kind of details like that, put down the strength, so this is sort of the way that we would used to do it in Makeup Effects, is doing kind of a capillary color, and creating these sort of vein pattern like that, and then sort of smoothing it out. But I'll just do a very exaggerated version as you can see. Okay, so if I do this, blamp, if I press Control, okay, basically what this is, if I do this, I am on black. Black means I will reveal all of the top color. In the mix nodes, the top color is black, the bottom color is white. So if I go back here, if I'm on black, it means I reveal the top color. In this case, I revealed it completely because I put my strength to 1. If I press Control, it puts white and it goes back and it erases it basically. So I can go between the two colors and erase them. And obviously I can change the strength like I was doing before and layer the colors on and then kind of feather them out. And I can actually, if you press Shift, there's a kind of a blur function that sort of works. And that's how you can basically do, color variations. And that's the sort of the most basic way. Now, first of all, I could also put on symmetry, which is probably a good idea. And I could, if I want to, put on sort of like just like a wash like that. Now, there's all these different settings in the brush texture. One of them, very useful one, is called wet mix. You see that when I did stroke upon stroke, you see the layering between the strokes. It doesn't look very good. But if you put on the wet mix, I do this, it blends them to some extent. And if I put it on even higher, it blends them even more. So I'll put the strength all the way up. You see that? Now it's blending the strokes together. So I'm not getting that horrific looking edge. So I can actually kind of blend these much, much better, more like it's sort of oil paints, you know, and I can do something like that. And I can use that. I can do all these different settings with the brush. There's other things I can do with the brush is I can set the density and I can change the density, which is like if you've ever used an airbrush, it's kind of like setting the pressure on an airbrush. So if I put this up really high, I'll put the strength to all the way to 1. You see this kind of splatter effect. Actually, I'll turn down the wet mix so you really see the splatter effect. You get this kind of spattering effect. And of course, you can smooth that, but that's not really what you want to do. You probably want to do more like using the spatter effect, but putting the strength way, way down and getting some kind of, well, that's maybe a little bit too much down, getting some kind of breakup, or maybe not that big, and using some kind of combination of maybe the wet mix. I'll take that out. Maybe the wet mix and the spatter. And basically, you can play with the brush settings and paint directly with that. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing you can also do is you can use textures. So I could go down to texture here, and I've already well, I didn't load it up, which is probably good. Um, I have made a texture, and I can go here and, for example, use clouds to give me some like broken up stuff, and I can scale that way down, scale the size down, and then I can use the texture. For example, one thing that works pretty well is to use this stroke method anchored, which is I'll show you what it is. I'll put the strength up way high, as you can see. Also turn the wet mix down. It is like in ZBrush you have a setting kind of like that, which I forget what it's called. I'm going to turn up the density, and you'll see what I mean. You're able to pull it out and then basically move it around. So for example, I can move that around. Now I could also set my wet mix up so that it blends a little bit better. I could change my strength, and I could basically do patterns like this to give broken up patterns very, very, very quickly. I could turn off the symmetry here if I want to, turn up the strength a little bit, and have these kind of broken up patterns. And then I could just go back over it with the other color and basically smooth it out a little bit. So I could do this kind of thing and build up colors very easily. It's pretty pleasant to use, actually. If you get used to these brushes, you can do a very good job with the skin tones. So now let's say you've done this layering. You've done this one layer of skin tone. This is your base layer and your red. So now I'm going to just kind of cover it up a bit more. Imagine you've done that, you've done that, you've done that, you're great, and for some reason you really like that. It's fantastic. Then you can go and switch colors. Now I can go now to veins, let's say. And let's say I don't want to have any of that stuff for the veins. I don't want a texture map or anything like that. I just want to have like a regular uh, kind of brush. And now I can paint on veins, and I can overlay the veins basically. So I'll do something really strong, and you'll see what I mean. Whoa, even more strong. Put the wet mix down. Density, where am I there? Let's see. And I'm not seeing anything for some reason. I wonder why that is. Oh, because it's on space, and I wanted it to be. No, it's okay. Space is fine. Let me go a bit bigger on the brush. Interesting. Let me see how I set it up. Maybe I forgot to do something. Oh, yes, that's right. I forgot to actually plug it in. That would be useful. All right, let me put the color in here. There we go. Let me erase what I just did. So if I do that, I just press Control and I can erase it. Okay, now if I go back to the veins, I'll paint some. I'll do a very strong version first, and then I'll do another version where I am doing it much less strong. Maybe I can paint, imagine I was painting a vein on the side of his head here. Her head. It's Lexi. It's a girl. And, I'm blending it, let's say. So I have I press Control. The Control allows me to go to the secondary color, which is basically erasing it. I'll put it up a little bit higher. Kind of diffusing it out with the other color. And I can just keep going between the colors and erasing it or blending it or whatever I want to do. Let me do like a very obvious, very large, stupid looking vein. All right, there we go. Very stupid looking. So let's say that at some point, I'll do a very huge vein. Look at that. Let's say at some point I say, well, you know what? I don't really like the color of that vein. I'd rather it to be more greenish. Well, the thing is, it's non-destructive, so you can do that very easily. I can pump up I can change any of the colors because I'm not actually painting on color. I'm just painting on black and white. So even here, if I wanted the base to be completely different, for example, I could make him, like a completely different base. I could make this red blue if I want. I could do whatever I want because once again, I'm not painting colors. I'm just painting uh, values. I'm changing the balance between the two colors. So I'll put it back to what it was. Basically, this is how you do it. You have various colors with the color attribute and the mix node set up and chain them together. And the order of the layers is the order of the chain. So this would be under this, would be under this, would be under this. So let me go back to the master here. And then you see the more elaborate version. That's what I have here. So each of these nodes, this is the reddish, this is the yellowish, this is greenish, or sorry, bluish, and this is purple, and each of them have their own vertex group that I'm using to distinguish between the colors. And I've also hooked up brightness and contrast to each of them. This is giving me another level of control. So for example, let's choose this one, which is, I'll take the reds here. So this here is what this color is kind of using the reds around the lips and all that kind of stuff. If I wanted to change that without repainting it, by doing this, I'm actually basically pumping up the contrast. I'm increasing the visibility of that layer. I also can control the contrast, obviously, so I can, like now I'm sharpening it up. So if I kind of imagine I'm doing this, now it's very, very sharp. But again, it's just that it's not like I'm not actually repainting anything. I'm just adjusting the layer, like you would do in Photoshop or Substance Painter or something like that. So it's very useful and very controllable. I'll put this back down. And you could obviously do that for any of the layers. And so I'll put this back to there. The other thing that I did here, besides just having the individual colors chained, is that the very root of everything, I actually have a noise texture. And if you're painting skin, one of the most important things to do is to have this basic breakup, like you have here. You notice that here, I have this breakup of the skin, this marbled looking breakup. Now this is controllable, obviously, because everything's controllable. I can change this and make the breakup a lot less obvious. I can also just have it be dark, but less contrasty. So for example, now I'm just smoothing it out, or I can have it be very, very obviously contrasty. And this is just, I've hooked up a brightness contrast node to it so I can control the patchiness. Now what this is really simple. It's literally just a noise texture being fed into, well, the brightness contrast and then being fed into the color ramp. The color ramp as well allows me to do very, if I want to make it very contrasty in a different way, I could do that. Put this back. And I'll make this a little bit less, well, maybe like that. Put the contrast back down to where it was. It's like more like that. And again, this is the basis for the whole paint job. So if I were just to hook this directly up, no, I'm sorry, that's wrong. I have to hook this directly up to the main node. It was just that. Once it slows, it would just look like that. That is without anything. That's just the breakup, which is like a procedural breakup. And again, that's the one that I can control. I can, make the whole thing darker or more contrasty or whatever. Less contrasty, more contrasty. So that gives like a kind of a basis to the whole paint job. I'm calling it a paint job because I guess I'm sort of coming from a physical effects world. So that's why I'm calling it a paint job. Texturing, as they say in 3D. So let me go back and plug this back into the, so that you see the whole chain of nodes. Take this off, put this into here. So you see basically what happens. Oh yeah, I better plug that in. You see what it is that each mix node has the bottom color is the previous setup. So in this case is the first setup. So I have my bottom color is just the base color, which like I said before, I could just change the base color at any point. And then the top color is the secondary color or the breakup color, which is controlled by this noise texture. Then this plugs into the second node, and now this whole thing is the second color. This whole combination is the second color, and now on top I have this other red that I'm controlling locally. So now I'm changing, now I can control that there's more red in the nose, more red in the lips, whatever. And then this whole mix goes into the next one, which is for some reason kind of collapsed. And then this one has kind of an orangish color, and it can obviously be like more of a tan color, whatever. This is just like an ochre to kind of give it, this is used to make it to give it like a melanin kind of color on top. And then that's fed into the bottom one, and that gives the vein texture and the vein color, and that the last one I have is like a purplish color. So basically, I'll just undo what I just did there because I changed the color. the whole thing is very much like layers in Photoshop or Substance Painter. And in the end, once you're finished doing this, you can bake the whole thing to a actual texture. So in this case, I had a low poly version, and this one I baked the previous texture into this. So this is, if you look here and I go there, that's the map that I made that I just baked everything from the procedural texture to the albedo. So now that's plugged into here, and this is my low poly. So basically, you can do the way that some people do this, or the way that I did it, is that you would use a version of the high poly to do all your painting. It seems to be actually faster to do vertex painting than it does to do it with texture maps. Blender's kind of weird and laggy with texture maps, but vertex color, especially in the sculpting tab, is very fast, and there's no lag really at all. So it can be a very high poly model, and you can paint really fast. That way you can basically do this whole layering thing in vertex color or in sculpting mode with the brush, and then once you're finished and once you've adjusted your layers, then bake it down to a map. So that's the idea. And I think it holds a lot of possibilities. And of course, because it's procedural, you could change it. You could even save um, the setup basically and just redo the vertex colors, or even potentially save. You can't really reuse the whole setup because the actual I'll go back to the other ones. You can't just completely reuse the setup because each of these color attribute maps are specific to the model. So, or if they were image texture, they would be specific to the model. But you can reuse this whole part and just remake the maps. Remake the factor maps. Anyway, that's the idea. Hopefully, it's useful for some people, and there you go.